Okay. Hi, I'm Nichi. I'm giving the talk on doubt tonight. I'm a sophomore. I'm studying music. J school got that right here. I'm from Minnesota. So I think it's cute that you guys think this weather's cold right now. Just kidding. I'm really happy y'all came out in the cold. Thank you. So yeah, I'm from Minnesota, and that makes me a Vikings fan, actually. So I'm going to start out. Some of you guys probably really like football. Some of you guys probably don't care about football at all. Some of you might just like the snacks that come with football. But I'm going to explain to you a play that was famous for the Minnesota Vikings last year in the divisional playoff game called the Minneapolis Miracle. So what happened, it was the New Orleans Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings have been up the whole first half, 17-0 into halftime. And then the second half, the Saints started coming back. It wasn't until the last 25 seconds of the game that the Saints scored a touchdown that brought them to a lead of 24-23 in the last 25 seconds. I remember where I was at this time. I was moving back into my dorm, Gillette, and the game was on in the lobby. A bunch of people were standing around, and I had my bags just sitting around me, and I saw that touchdown happen, and I was wearing my Vikings jersey, being a proud fan the whole first half. And as soon as that touchdown was scored, I took my stuff and I went back upstairs. I just gave up on the team, went back to finish moving in. And as I was coming back down, I got out of the elevator and people in the lobby were like kind of going crazy, and I ran back out to see Drew Brees' face on the TV, who is the quarterback for the Saints. And he just looked dumbfounded and confused. And then the announcers are going, "And that, folks, is the Minneapolis Miracle." And so then they started showing the replays of what had just happened, what I had just missed. And what had happened is Stephon Diggs, who was a wide receiver on the Vikings, had caught a 27-yard pass and then run the clear end, and this was the third down, 3rd and 10 seconds left. Run the clear into the end zone for a 61-yard touchdown that would win them the game with the clock hitting 0 as he ran into the end zone. So I had missed the most famous, most exciting Minnesota Vikings play in football history because I doubted my team could win. So I have a little video. You guys can watch the play. It's pretty exciting.
Vikings at their own 39, it's 3rd down. 3 receivers right, Beal in the left. Marshawn Lattimore 12 yards from Adam. Case on a deep drop, steps up in the pocket. He'll fire to the right side, called by Diggs. Stay oh my God! Oh my God! Marty, no chance! Yeah! Are you kidding me? In the Minneapolis It's a 61-yard Minneapolis Miracle. I can't believe what I just saw, Kyle. What an unbelievable play. Fans at US Bank Stadium are embracing each other. They're trying to climb into the box to hug us all. Nobody can find Stephon Diggs.
Gotta get your chest on a Wednesday night.
I missed that play because I doubted my team could win. So if you're still with me in this metaphor, I guess Diggs and the Vikings represent God. The rest of us represent Vikings fans. So thank you guys. So when things are good, faith is easy. When family and friends are happy, grades are good, weather's nice. Why would you doubt that God isn't on your side? But as soon as life gets tough, that's when doubt tends to set in. Whether it's self-doubt, doubt in the church, doubt in God's love, His plan, or maybe even His existence. So I was nervous about giving this talk because I don't feel like I have the answers for how to avoid this doubt. But what I do have is kind of the steps that I've taken to deal with it and face it, and hope you take something out of it. So first off, I'm going to put a definition behind faith, and it's the one that Lizzie used last week. And she defined it as detachment from human emotions, preferences, ideas, and plans in following Christ. So doubt is kind of the opposite of that, and I define doubt as uncertainty or confusion, and in this case, loss in the trust of Christ's plan. So I was doing a little devotion the other day, and kind of praying over this talk, and I opened up my my Bible and started reading James, just because that's a pretty straightforward, quick and easy book to read. And the first thing that jumped out at me is James 1, verses 6 through 8, which say, "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord." So that really fit in perfectly with what I had to talk about, and so I kind of based my talk off of that. So pretty much that part saying, the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. So when we doubt, we're just kind of lost and confused, and our faith might not necessarily be completely gone, but it's definitely shaky. So here's just a little story I have for you about a time that God showed himself to me in my life when I really needed it. And I want to start by saying, I really don't have it all together, and I think we often like to pretend that we do, and especially the person up here seems like they know exactly what they're talking about, but we're all struggling together, and we all face doubts together. And even I still frequently have doubts. So, side note, if you know me at all, you know that I'm actually a pretty trusting person. Some of you might say gullible, but I'm going to say trusting. For example, close your ears here. Santa still visits you on Christmas Eve. I believed in Santa until I was almost in 7th grade. My first concert was the Hannah Montana Miley Cyrus concert, and I was still completely convinced that they were indeed two different people. But I also didn't have cable growing up, so I didn't watch the show, so I didn't know. So anyway, that's really off track, but I was raised Catholic. I have a very Christian family. I've had a pretty great life so far. I followed the normal Christian kid track. I got confirmed just to kind of check off the boxes, make the family happy. So I've gone through a majority of my life with an incredibly lukewarm faith, and I didn't really care about the doubts that were constantly in the back of my head that I didn't really notice until I got here and I stepped into this community, and I saw so many people that were so sure in their faith and just had this relationship and this happiness that I wanted, and I wanted to know what it was all about. So I went on Awakenings last fall, and there's this one part, a time called Desert Time, and it's a big chunk of time, and you can, take a walk or go pray, or, it's just kind of some quiet time, some reflection time. And I went outside and sat by the lake because I've been kind of having, nothing really radical had happened to me, and I was a little frustrated, and I like being outside, I like being in nature, I feel closest to God there. So I sat looking over the lake, and everything was really still and quiet, and the sun was just peeking through a little bit, the lake was completely still. And I just sat there, and I was in frustration with God. I was you have not been answering my prayers, or you've been listening to me. And there was all these things about, that first semester freshman year come with, including I was praying for friends in the sorority I didn't know I fit into, and direction for what I should major in, or what my career would be, all these different things, some of them a little more serious, some really insignificant. And so I sat on that ledge and I was God, why aren't you listening to me? Are you there? And literally in that moment, a huge gust of wind came. It had been so calm that whole time. And the trees started blowing like crazy, and the water started hitting up against the shore, and the sun came out super bright. And I was just hey, yeah, okay, thank you for that. And it was he was telling me, Nichi, I'm here, I'm listening, you gotta be patient, I'm working in my own time, I'm giving you the answer you might not be looking for, but I know what's going on over here. So when I look back on that, I can see now that a lot of those prayers have been answered. Some of them are still a work in progress, but in that moment, that's really what I needed, and he just needed to show me that he was there, because the rest of that weekend, I kind of flipped a switch on my brain, and I was really into it the rest of the weekend, and I ended up getting so much out of it. And that's kind of a good reminder for me to now frequently not doubt his plan, because whether or not I think the timing is right or wrong, it's his timing, and it's his answer that he's going to give me. It's not what I think should happen. Also, just a side note, I want you to know that it's okay to struggle. Struggle is not failure, it's engaging with God's call. And it shows that you aren't satisfied where you're at the moment. And this goes along with whatever doubts you may have. Maybe you're doubting the church or some teachings of the church, which is another common doubt we face. And if you struggle with certain teachings of the church, that is okay. It's not a sin. We wish it were easy to understand everything that we're told. But doubting is where we ask questions, and when we bring that to each other, that's where we learn and grow. So, as I sat with this talk, I was trying to come up with some kind of like tangible steps. I like having like points on how I feel like I deal with doubt. So first, I say ask and listen. And with that, you gotta make time to pray. This is something I've really been working on recently, especially. I've always been a master at horizontal prayer. You know, you go to bed, fold the hands, start praying a little bit, and then wake up in the same position. So I put a little post-it note on my wall above my desk that says make time. And that's been a big goal for me. And I often complain about, not having enough time for things in the day, and I very well know that the time is there. I just need to make it a priority. So I find that when I get out of my room and go to the chapel, and sit with God, whether it's in frustration or conversation or silence, if I'm not feeling it that day, I still make myself go, and that has made an immense difference, even in the short amount of time I've been doing it. So I'm trying to make that a habit, and that has been very helpful. And again, with that, back to the James verse, when I pray without doubt that God will answer me. And we're allowed to ask God for things. I think that's a common thing, or sometimes you feel like you're just listing things that you're asking for. Remember to thank Him too, but He might not answer your your prayers right away. But if you give it time, He will answer, and you gotta be open to it, to the answer He might give you. So my second thing that I have is to have a reminder. I kind of have two for myself. The first one being creation, specifically the ocean. I'm just absolutely captivated by the ocean. So I had the opportunity to go to Ireland for the last week of my winter break to visit my cousin. And we were on this island, and we biked around all day, and then we stumbled upon these cliffs. And this was the view from there. I was sitting right out on the edge. And me and my sister and my cousin, we just sat there for I don't know how long, a long time. And we're just mesmerized, didn't talk, just looked. And I was sitting there, I've been kind of introspective, kind of deep. And I was like, if this isn't a perfect example of God's love, it is. It's so vast and expansive, and I know that it keeps going. I can't see the end of it, but I just know it. And why do I believe that? I can't see it. And so I kind of related that right back to God's love. He tells us in the Bible time and time again, yet we still doubt it so often. So my second reminder that I have is the crucifix. And this one can be more when I'm doubting myself in any way. And we all doubt ourselves at some time or another. And we like to pretend we have it all together a lot of the time, because that's kind of how society wants us to act. But we don't. And so whenever I doubt myself, I look to the crucifix. And it can be really exhausting to constantly be doubting yourself. But when I look at the crucifix, I specifically am intrigued by just Jesus' position on the cross and how exhausted He looks, and how my exhaustion is so incomparable to what He was experiencing at that time. And so that right there, he's so exhausted and he's in that position, but He's still saying, still bring all your doubts to me, still bring your struggles, and lay them down at my feet, and I'll take them off your shoulders, which is so amazing. There's a verse, Romans 5:8, which says, God proves His love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And that right there is just a statement of how much He loved us. He did not have to die for us, but He chose to do that so He could live with us and give us this amazing world and this amazing relationship that He has to offer us. So my third step would be, don't give up on Him. You're going to go through rough patches. We all have, we all do. But you got to persist through those dry seasons and through those doubts. Even if you don't think He's listening, even if your prayer is not great, even if you feel not close to Him, you're doubting His plan or His existence or whatever it may be, I just ask that you keep going to Him. He will be there when you show up because he's always there waiting for you. And he knew that we have doubts, so don't try to hide them from him. It just makes everything easier if you're straight up with him. But don't just tell him. Sit there with him and listen and wait on his answer. So one of the biggest struggles I've had with doubt is in adoration. And I don't know if any of you guys are with me on that one, but it's just always been hard for me to believe when I'm sitting in adoration that that is actually the body and blood of Jesus Christ sitting with me. The body of Jesus Christ sitting with me. So first, I've learned to ask and listen. I ask in prayer and for him to help me understand, and I sit with him in that. But with that, I tell him that I'm struggling, but I still go to adoration and I still pray. And sometimes, sometimes you're feeling it, sometimes you're not. But that's okay, you just gotta keep going to him. And I trust that he will answer my prayers because he's proven himself time and time again that he does. So then I have a reminder for this as well. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Eucharistic miracles, but they're pretty cool. So I'm going to tell you a story about this one that was really exciting to me. It's called the Eucharistic Miracle of Buenos Aires. Did I say that right, Ryan? Okay. So it happened August 18th, 1996. And this guy, Father Angelo, was giving Mass at a church. And in the back of the church, someone had dropped a host on the floor and brought it up to the priest because someone didn't want to eat it because it had been on the floor. And so what they do in that case is they take it and put it in water and then put it in the tabernacle until it dissolves, and then they feed the water to a plant or something. So he put it in the water and put it in the tabernacle, and then 8 days later he came to look and see if it was dissolved. And instead of it dissolving, it had actually transformed into a piece of bloody flesh. So this was 8 days later on August 26th, and the host had not decomposed at all, it had just transformed. So they got it professionally photographed, because this is kind of a strange thing, and then they kind of kept it in the tabernacle for 3 years. And then after 3 years, it was in the same state it had been in at that time, so they decided to get it tested. So a psychophysiologist took a sample for testing, and they didn't want to prejudice the study, so they didn't tell them where it had come from or what the case was. So the scientist takes it back and does some testing on it, and came up with the results that it was indeed a piece of human flesh, and it was specifically from the heart, and even more specifically from the left ventricle, which is the part of the heart that gives the heart its beat and the body life. And there are also white blood cells present, which shows that white blood cells go directly to a place of injury or suffering. So it showed that whoever's body this had come from had been suffering at their time of death. So then they took this DNA and to go even further, they compared it to some lab results from another Eucharistic miracle that had happened 12,000 years prior in Italy. And the results were the same. Both were human DNA that traced to a man with AB positive blood type, which is a universal blood type. And both men were from the Middle East region. So, I don't know. I don't think that's a coincidence. You guys can argue. But that's just kind of, then the scientist who was a staunch atheist before converted and became a devout Catholic the rest of his life, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of, God doesn't have to give us those miracles, but he does because he knows that this stuff is really hard for our little brains to wrap around. It's big stuff, and he's there to help us. So the third thing, don't give up on him, persist. So just again, keep praying, and remember the verse, James 1:6-8, which says, "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord." So whether your struggle is self-doubt, struggle with teachings of the church, or doubt of God's love, his existence, whatever it may be, just know that everyone in this room comes from a different experience and a different background. and they're in a different place in their faith journey. And we have so much to learn from each other. So don't just bring your doubts to God, bring them to each other. And you'll probably quickly realize that you're not alone in whatever you're experiencing. So if for all these reasons, like nothing convinced you to maybe give God a try, I ask you at the very least, why not? Why not take a leap of faith, give God a shot? Let's say we're all wrong and we have nothing but death and a grave awaiting us at the end. It's a pretty sad, hopeless way to live. But if we're right, we have a kingdom, a paradise and love, and a Father who is ready to embrace us and love us after this life. What a hopeful way to live in pursuit of that promise. So, and I hate to say it, but if the metaphor still goes and is playing out, let's not be Vikings fans. Let's not let doubt take over and keep us from seeing the great things that God has in a relationship with us.